client journey and onboarding and service deliveries. Great to have you here. My name is Brett Jarvis. This is Kasey Smith joining me. We'll introduce ourselves in a moment. Kasey, you doing well this morning?
Doing great. Nice to see you, Brett.
Very good to see you as well. Very good to see you. It's terrific to be here. A little bit of housekeeping. If you want to ask questions, you can do that, and we will get to those later on. That would be great. You might see in my background a little QR code. If you want to talk to anybody at Rocket Lane, you can scan that and set up an appointment with us. That would be fantastic as well. So terrific to be here with you. And we've got a lot of great content and things to discuss. So let's get going. All right. So I mentioned that. Look for the recording today from today's session as well in your follow-up email. And as I mentioned, you can talk to us at any point. Just a little bit of background about me. I've been doing this a long time, working in the SaaS field for quite some time. I've had a variety of roles in customer-facing roles and leadership roles at places like Oracle and Salesforce and LinkedIn. And I have also led everything after the deal closes at a variety of companies recently. And about 6 months ago, I joined Rocket Lane, and I am delighted to be here for a variety of different reasons, including the rapid growth, but also the phenomenal focus that we have and try to keep improving in working with our customers. And Rocket Lane, a little bit about Rocket Lane. It's a purpose-built client project delivery platform that helps you do all sorts of different things: onboarding, professional services automation, and generally to drive projects within your company, but especially with customers. And we accomplish a variety of things as well: accelerating time to value, bringing consistency and transparency, which we'll talk about more later on as some of the key things that we're going to be focusing on here. Increase project profitability, improve utilization rates, et cetera. And you can see that we're getting great reviews as well. Kasey, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, that sounds great. So I'm Kasey Smith, currently at Graphite. Early in my career, I've done a few different things. So initially, I went down the entrepreneur route. All through college, post-graduation, I was in the sourcing and procurement world, building businesses, sourcing product, traveling all over Southeast Asia. After that, I led a few global sourcing and procurement teams in the operations side of the world. Currently, I lead operations at Graphite, customer success, implementations, and support services, the CX side of the business. The interesting part about Graphite is we are a supplier onboarding and data management tool built like a LinkedIn network. So if you've ever dabbled in the sales side of the business and ever sold to a large enterprise, you've gone through the painful process of the onboarding process where you have to answer, it could be hundreds or even thousands of questions: tax, infosec, data privacy, all of this stuff. So we help with that side of the business. But as we talk today, Brett, what I'm most excited about is I don't come from this legacy CX implementation, customer success background. I come from building businesses, operations, which kind of leads into customer success, implementations, professional services. But really, here at Graphite is my first real experience leading CX teams. And it's been an awesome experience. We've really matured recently over the last few years, and it's been with a lot of help from Rocket Lane, really. So I'm excited to share some of those experiences, but it's been an awesome experience, really on the operations side. But over the last 18 months, I've been so deep on the CX side. So I'm excited to share some of those experiences.
Terrific. Thanks a lot, Kasey. And Kasey and I have been working together for several months now. He's one of our customers, as he mentioned, and it's been great seeing your input, getting your input, learning from you, coming from that different background as well. Kasey's very focused on efficiency and the like, and that's really helpful in this space. I love seeing all of the places everybody's coming in from.
That's awesome.
Yeah, on the chat. That's fantastic. So good afternoon and evening to some of you as well. Terrific. So let's talk about customer experience, this customer journey side, and how experience is the new differentiator. It's been the differentiator on the consumer side for a while. but experience that focuses towards outcomes still. But experience is a differentiator within the B2B side as well, as long as it's purpose-built experience. So let's talk about, let's give a common example that everybody's familiar with, going back to your favorite restaurant multiple times and what brings you back. And a lot of that is the experience that you have there, what you're trying to accomplish by going there, and the experience that helps you with it. So that journey, here's a nice journey for going to the restaurant. It might be easy to book a reservation. You know how to do it. They always hold your reservation. I was at a place recently where they didn't hold our reservation. That makes the situation very difficult. But you've got that great experience beforehand. They welcome you. If you've been there multiple times, they might know your name. They might know where you like to sit. You might even have the opportunity where you can, while booking your reservation, select a certain seating and the like. They might know the types of things that you want. I went one time with my mom to one of her favorite restaurants. Before the guy even came by to like take any drink orders or even welcome us, he brought her a strawberry lemonade because he knew that's what she wanted. And so that kind of service and knowing about somebody is fantastic. The Then the meal itself has to be terrific. Obviously, they've got, the meal has to be good, but also the service has to be good. They might provide a little surprise. Maybe they'll, you go to some places that are getting started as restaurants, they might give you a little extra dessert or something just to get you feeling good. But if that happens throughout, whenever you show up, there's an additional surprise that would be fantastic. Obviously, they're checking in with you during the experience, giving the farewell gesture, etc. All of these things are meaningful, important as you go through with a restaurant experience. And similarly, we're going to talk about how similar experience can be intentional and purposeful and help you to do great in servicing your customers. Because even though a part of this, why a restaurant might do this for you, is to so that you can talk about it with friends and that you'll come back and all of that as well. But part of it obviously is they will get you to spend more either now or later as well. So it's a symbiotic relationship that they're going to have with you, and as they're intentional and purposeful about it, they will make it so that you'll always want to be there. So what we're saying is experience now teams with outcomes in B2B. Outcomes are super important. Obviously, customer's not going to be interested in doing business with you if you're not having the outcomes, and they will continue to be interested in doing business with you if you're helping them drive their outcomes. But purposeful, intentional experience can help to drive those outcomes and help to make it so that they want to do even more business with you, and they have a great experience doing that. So, Kasey, do you want to talk about from your experience what you've seen some on the, on the impact? People can read this slide here, obviously, but I think you've seen some of this impact in your own experience as well.
Yeah, we've seen a huge impact. So at Graphite currently, we are a Series A startup who does business with large enterprise customers. And I don't know, 18 months to 2 years ago, we were relatively new in our implementation journey. We would start implementations with a white blank sheet of paper and let the customer kind of envision what they wanted to implement, and things would get a little bit out of control. And what we realized over time as we kind of enhanced this process was the customer experience was essential. We really focused on this. We started getting a little bit more professional and focusing on how we can enhance this experience. And something cool as I was prepping a little bit for this webinar and thinking about some of the changes that we made is I went and talked to our CFO and looked back at as we enhanced our tech stack around implementations. And some of those things that we did was we actually implemented a project management tool, which for us is Rocket Lane today. And implementations aren't necessarily a revenue generator for us. It's a means to an end of creating a great experience where our customers go live and are satisfied with the experience to where things are moving in a positive direction to where they want to renew, and we create a positive experience where they're around for a long time and we can land and expand. That's our goal here with implementation. After going live with Rocket Lane and creating this really awesome implementation experience, we've actually seen a 60% increase in gross revenue, gross margin around our implementation. So to us, what we've seen, and obviously as a relatively new business where gross margin went from a relatively low number to a much better number, is creating a great experience around implementations, and this whole customer experience journey has been monumental to us. It's something we didn't focus on initially. Our real goal was, how do we go live quickly? How do we just move this customer along and get them live and get them experiencing the product, where we really focused on this. So I really love this stat we have here in the first box, where 41% of customer obsessed companies achieved at least 10% revenue growth in their last fiscal year. This speaks exactly to what we've experienced over the last 18 months.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and we've experienced similar things where the focus on getting it right, not just getting it fast, makes it so that customers are going to stay engaged with you, willing to continue on with you. And we'll
But I
talk
would
about some
actually
of the
say, Brett,
things that we're
sorry to
doing.
cut you off there, is
Yeah, it's fine.
what we've learned most is getting it right leads to getting it done fast. Is that
Agreed
pathway I
completely.
spoke about initially, of opening up an implementation with a blank piece of paper and asking the customer, how do we want to do this? Which we thought was white glove treatment that every customer would love.
Right,
Turns out
right,
they don't. They actually
right,
want us to come to them with guidelines, and they want us to hold their hand and tell them how this is going to go. Turns out that when
right.
we structure this thing and make it seem like it's going to be more difficult, even though it's not, things go quicker when we have some structure around these things and give them this white glove experience, which in the past we thought white glove experience means tell them they can have whatever they want, and let them create
Yeah.
whatever they envisioned throughout the sales cycle.
Yeah, agreed completely. Customers are actually looking for you to not just hold their hand, but also hold them accountable and
Totally.
tell them how it's going to move forward. And then you get there faster. And you've got a great story about that in a moment here. So we'll get to
Yep.
that in a little bit. All right. So let's talk about a few different areas where you can amplify the experience in a purposeful way with your customers as you're getting them going, as you're getting them started at these different touch points. And so, first, we've got this word intensity. Intensity drives impact. Set the tone early. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what intensity means to you, Kasey, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So intensity is important, obviously, throughout the entire process. Sales and then implementation and then customer success have to work hand in hand here. Um, Intensity is something that we've focused on enhancing early in our process. And as we talk about this exact slide here of bulletproof your handoffs, start off on the right foot, communicate proactively, is really important to us. As we've kicked off projects, something that's been really important to us is getting high and wide within an organization. That's the intensity that we talk about. We try to create cultures within our internal teams and the external customer team where we create accountability. Many times when you kick off a project within the customer organization, those that you're meeting with on a weekly basis or a monthly basis to implement the product are not the same people that were involved in the sales cycle. You're likely not meeting with, in many cases, the CFO or the CPO or the CTO on a weekly basis. They don't have time for that, but they were very involved in the sales cycle many times, especially with large purchases. And because of that, we like to set expectations during the handoff cycle and during the kickoff cycle, where we are going to involve you on a weekly basis in status updates, setting kind of this intensity around what is going on. We want to ensure that our internal team members that we're communicating with on a weekly basis are not the only ones that get to set the understanding around how the project's going. We want to have accountability on both sides. And we also make it clear to our customer stakeholders that we're working with that you can do the same to us. Please communicate with our leadership team around how the project is going on both sides. This is key to us. We're going to, through our tool, which is Rocket Lane, allow those senior stakeholders on the customer team to understand where are the blockers, what's going on, not solely allow our project managers on the customer team to communicate up that the reason this project's not progressing is the graphite team, when really there's an IT resource that's not allowing us to have sandbox access. This is key, and we communicate this in a handoff that really creates the intensity around the project that allows our internal team along with the customer team to understand that this isn't some adversarial relationship where we are tattletelling on each other, but we're all in this to get this project finished, and we are okay with accountability and being candid with each other. This is really important to us.
Right, and it's really important to set that up front so that it won't feel like
Otherwise, it does.
tattletelling
If this
later
happens in the
on.
middle of
That's
the
right.
project, it feels that way, and then
That's right.
you lose these stakeholders that you're working with on a weekly basis. It
That's
becomes really
that's
uncomfortable.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, hugely important. So you had mentioned also when we were prepping for this that making sure these handoffs go right from sales to implementation is super important. We show here a slide of getting the right information, collecting the right information that you want to have so that you can move forward in great ways. And you had mentioned, yeah, you don't want to overburden that process because
Well, sales
sales
is
is
hard.
hard. Right. You
Exactly.
don't want to make yeah, you don't want to make it harder. But at the same time, you work with sales and hopefully you have a sales team that understands that you're trying to have these customers forever and grow these customers forever, and there are things that have to be done to get them started right, on the right front. To your point about making sure that customers know who that the implementation manager's leadership is, and that they can reach out to them at any point. We always start our kickoffs with a slide, and I try to show up to plenty of kickoff meetings as well, so that they know who I am, that I'm there, that they can reach out to me at any point, and for that very reasons that you were talking about. So let's talk about starting off on the right foot as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about this where I was just talking to a customer yesterday, actually, where it was clear the project kickoff that we had was a little off for them because we didn't set up with our key stakeholders what we were going to do in that project kickoff before. And so what we've done many times, this one was, like the project kickoff had been like a year or so ago, so we've improved that. But the what we do is we will work with our key stakeholders in advance, make sure that we've got all the questions answered, share with them the project kickoff, and then go into that project kickoff, because you want to make sure that those who are involved in that are seeing your engagement with them, your interaction with them for the first time, those who are not involved in the sales cycle and like, that they know, oh, this is a professional company. They have their act together. They know what they're planning on doing. They're going to, as you were talking about earlier, Kasey, they're going to, hold our hand and hold us accountable, and they'll be able to drive that. Because what for me intensity means is, not showing up looking fierce or anything like that, but is making sure that we show up in a professional manner, that we have our ducks all in a row, our presentations are sharp, our engagement is accurate, and we've prepped our people, our key people at the customer, as well as prepped ourselves ready to go for any sort of meetings, including obviously the important kickoff.
Because Brett, you want to know
Um,
what you find
yeah.
is if if you don't come to the meeting prepared, like you're describing with that sort of intensity, the customer will tend to take over the project plan quickly. That they
Yes.
recognize that they are equally, if not more, invested in the success of the project than we are. So quickly, the customer will recognize this team implementing this project are not professional and they are not up to par. They do not know how to project manage, so it's our job to do so. And quickly that project will get a little bit out of hand.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. That's a great point. To the point that was just made in the Slack, the chat as well, I should say. You can put questions in the Q&A portion of the screen here, and to engage with us later on as well. We talked about this to some degree, communicating proactively. Were there other points that you wanted to add here, Kasey? I've got some points as well, but did you want to add some things here?
You can go for it, Brett.
So one of the things we were talking about, Kasey was talking about making sure that our customers, that that you might escalate with them at any point. And so what we make sure that we do is we have a weekly report out, status report that in our system gets created automatically, and then somebody can either modify before sending it out or just send it out automatically as well. But that helps because obviously implementation managers have a ton of things to do. We mentioned sales is not an easy job. Implementing is certainly not an easy job. But we with that status report, we're going to send that to everybody, all of the stakeholders, and so that helps us to make sure that the people that we're working with know that their leaders are going to see where things are at, and they will see if something is red or something is behind, and they'll see who the owner of it is. One of the things is I was talking with our customers early on when I joined here, and I was trying to find out what our most successful customers did in order to be successful. One of the things that they talked about was sharing the projects, which they can do through Rocket Lane, obviously, but sharing their projects with their customers. And so it does what Kasey was saying. It shows that they have a plan. So obviously and immediately the customers have confidence in what the company is going to do and what the implementation manager is going to do. They have confidence. Okay, they've got a plan. They know what they're doing. Look at all these things they've got written down. I can see them. We'll move forward in a great way here. And the other thing that our customers have said it helps them to be successful is it holds their customers accountable for this very reason. And so communicating that both proactively and on a weekly and regularly scheduled basis is very important for moving forward here. Anything to add on that, Kasey?
No, I would just reiterate what you're saying here, Brett, is that the key to these weekly status reports, especially if these projects are relatively lengthy, is that they are beneficial to your stakeholders' leadership team. And if they're not, they're going to get ignored. So it's key that these status reports, I think sometimes we default to sending them only to those we work with frequently. And if that's the case, those people are already up to speed on what's going on in the project and they
Right.
be slightly worthless. The key is get these to those that are not in the weekly meetings, that are only receiving updates from those on their team who unfortunately their bias is to make themselves look good. That's just kind of our natural way of
That's right.
working. So the key here is to communicate, and don't be afraid to communicate things that make the project look like it's off track proactively. That's always best. Let's not get to the end of this project and then have to release the bad news that we could have
That's
communicated earlier. It's tough.
that's life in general, but and definitely
Sure.
with these
It's something I struggle
implementation
with big
plans.
time. Yeah. My gut always tells me, don't communicate the bad news yet and just work extra hard to fix the problem. And
Right.
that rarely works. So it's usually not the best
Right.
move.
Yeah, I've seen far too many times where people go, oh, I'll fix it within the next week. It'll get fixed in the next
Yeah.
week.
It never does.
And then,
Yeah.
right, exactly. And then you've gone weeks and they're like, why didn't you tell me weeks ago?
Yeah.
So that's exactly right. Well, that's great. And we've talked multiple times about how to engage customers and make sure that they stay engaged. And I'll at the end of this presentation, encouragement to stay to the end. I'll be talking about how to do that with smaller customers as well, and a key thing that people love when I share that with them. So, all right, we just talked about some clarity and making sure that we're clear with the bad news as well. And so now we're going to talk a little bit more about leading with clarity and how that drives success through structure. And this is where Kasey, you want to tell your story, I think, about how you templatized and how you got there and how you initially saw some resistance to do this, but what happened there. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm going to share a story about a specific implementation that we had. Maybe, I don't know, it was probably 18 months ago. I was relatively new at Graphite. I was leading the operations team. I had very little product knowledge of the actual product. And I want this story to come off as I am not tooting my own horn here. This was not due to any knowledge I had or any skill set I had. This was a lot of luck, but really a lot of work we put into templatizing uh, the implementation process at Graphite. So a minute ago, I spoke about, in a prior graphite life, we implemented kind of as a blank slate. We have a lot of really great implementation managers at Graphite that luckily have been here for a long time. Some of them have been here basically since the inception of the company, and because of that, they know everything. They can open up a Graphite sandbox environment and say, "Hey, customer, what would you like to build?" And they can build anything. The product is so configurable that you can do anything the customer wants, and we can build that. And that's great, and it's bad all at the same time. We can turn a 6-week implementation into a 2-year implementation if we want, due to complexity and business cases and everything else. We can do a lot of stuff. And that had been a problem for us where we did that many times, which gets really expensive when you're putting full-time resources on projects that we hope to take 12 weeks and they take a year. This can get really expensive. So we purchased Rocket Lane and we're really excited, and we've never done this before. So we start templatizing our implementations, and we decide we're going to get on a project to make this really, really granular for somebody like myself with no knowledge, very little knowledge of the product. I've been working on the operations side of the business, not the product side of the business, who knows very little. And I want you to think of Graphite, because nearly everyone in here has very little knowledge. I'll speak to our customer success side of the business implementation as like a CRM, or even like a complicated ERP, like a NetSuite or an SAP, something complicated. Now imagine, with no knowledge of that product, going in to implement that. You're a new implementation manager and you need to go implement that product for a customer. You've sold that and you have to go implement it. This would be really difficult. So what we did is we got with some of our more experienced team members and we templatized an entire implementation in Rocket Lane from line by line, every single step. And we, as a leadership team, said, "All right, Kasey, this isn't your job, but we're going to send you at this new customer." They were relatively small. There wasn't going to be a lot of damage if I messed this up and things went sideways. We could send in the experienced people to fix this problem for us, and we're going to see how this goes. So I came in and I started leading these meetings without a lot of knowledge, following step by step. I would go into a meeting and I would pre-game before and say, "Okay, here's my 6 steps that we templatized, and I'm going to talk about these things, and I can't get off track because I don't know how to talk about anything else other than what is in these steps." And things were going amazing. And we would talk about these things, and I would write some Jira tickets after, and the product team would configure the product, and we were kind of mind blown at what was going on. And I would go into the next meeting, and about 5 meetings later, we went live with this customer, and that was unheard of. Normally it was 50, 60, 70 meetings of time to get product live. And once again, this was not my knowledge. I was the least knowledgeable person. I just followed the steps one after another, as opposed to walking in and saying, "All right, customer, Graphite is awesome and we can do all these things. Tell us your business rules. How do you do procurement with your team, and what's your logic, and send us your documents, and let's configure this, and how do you want to do this?" I just said, "Here's the best in class process. We have huge customers. Here's how they do it. Here's how you should do it. Here's our recommendation. Let's follow the rules." And I spoke with confidence. And 6 weeks later, we went live on something that we expected to take much longer. And it was kind of an eye-opening experience for us of, we can potentially do this. And at that point, we had
Right.
kind of landed at an experience, Brett, of maybe we can't implement these smaller customers because we can't do it quick enough to justify kind of the small implementation fee we can charge. But after templatizing this product
Right.
offering, we did it so quickly that we said, maybe there is an offering here for us. We still have this world where large enterprise customers, we need one of these legacy implementation managers that has lots of experience, but tagging on their knowledge with templatizing an enterprise implementation has been a game changer for us. I still can't do that with my limited product knowledge and not being as smart as them, but it still
Right.
saved us with their implementations and allowed us to take someone new and let them implement something much simpler, because we're so organized today. Whereas before, we felt like we needed some unicorn implementation manager to implement anything at Graphite. It's been
Right.
incredible. To this day, people are still dumbfounded that someone is with such a lack of technical experience was implementing the product. So
I was able
was
to
a
do it.
fascinating experience for us.
That that's fantastic, and I love that story. And that also is, I had mentioned one of the things that our successful customers told me they
But
were
I'm not
doing.
trying again. to be clear, Brett, I'm not trying
No,
it
no.
again because if
This
I
isn't
do,
about
it
you.
may not go as well. So if I implement,
Right, right.
yeah, we
You're
can stop
checking
there.
and saying, hey, right, exactly. Quitting while you're
I
ahead.
proved
Quitting while
it
you're ahead.
or never again.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, our most successful customers mentioned this as the number one thing that they did, which was, and often using a tool like Rocket Lane, they use as a forcing function to be able to do this. And so templatizing everything, making it clear, here's what we're going to do, creating structure and orderliness to it. And then to the point we tipped off the hour with, it helps things to go faster and better. And then it helps to eliminate rework, as James mentioned in the chat as well. So that's exactly right. Terrific. And we did the same thing with our smaller customers. Like I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit more about the smaller customers later, but the number of meetings were dragging on, and I was like, 3 meetings, and what are the very key things that they need to get done? And we're doing those things in the meeting. So templatize everyone. Another is show the golden path. And we talked about this to some degree earlier, where show the path that they're going to go through. Make sure that they understand that from the start, and it will instill confidence in what you're doing in them. It'll give them clear visibility as to what's happening. It'll also make it so that midway through or at the end, they don't go, wait a second, I thought we were going to do this. Like, make sure it's clear what you're going to be doing with them. And if there need to be changes up front, they happen up front. Obviously, things will still happen, but you can revert back to, hey, this is what we showed, and this is how we're going to move forward. And then, you want to track progress, and ensure accountability as you go along, and make sure that you're understanding that progress, and working through that, and that everybody, we've talked about, both the customer and you, know how that's moving forward. We're going to talk a little bit more about flagging risks as well in a moment. Anything on those 2 items, Kasey?
Nope, I think you touched on those.
Okay, excellent. All right, so show early wins and reduce time to value. We've talked about getting some early wins here as well. Some of the keys are, agree on what the first value areas are going to be, and make sure you're delivering those early. So that might be, some different possibilities. It might be that your customers will get the most value out of, hey, let's create the templates and make sure that you're ready and all lined up for, for your projects, or for whatever you're planning on doing with them, for smaller customers, like, here's what you're going to do for them, and how you're going to move forward for them. And you might tee that up, or you might say, like one of our customers said, hey, we want to get to where we're showing profitability, or at least, as Kasey was saying earlier, where we're showing, like flat, profitability, and we're able to at least understand it, and understand where because we sell to implementers, right? So where our implementation team is spending too much time, doing too much, spending too much money, etc. And we want to get to profitability. But the first thing we want to do in order to show value is make sure that we're getting the product adopted, and that people are using it. Because we know that if we do that, we will be able to get to the other thing. We'll be able to show utilization. We'll be able to get there. And so that was, the first thing that we're focused on. They had a previous product, and it didn't adopt at all, and so they wanted to drive that. So choose those first things that you're going to work on. You can work on the long-term objectives, business objectives, through the process, but there will be short-term areas that you want to make sure you're driving success in quickly, and then focus on driving that success. And for one other thing, we mentioned that I consulted with a customer about a year ago. They were focusing on a variety of different things with their onboarding, but as I was talking to them, it was clear that they were selling to people who sold real estate, and what really mattered for their product was how to help them sell, and that was all that really mattered. So I consulted with them, and they changed their approach so that they focused on getting to that point really quickly. Anything you'd like to add on this one, Kasey?
Yeah, I really like the slide. Agree on first value pointers and deliver them early. And I think you made some great points there, Brett. One thing that's important for us is many times we deal with customers that want to accomplish one of 2 things. Many times customers, once they decide on a tool to implement when we're talking about software businesses, is they've decided too late. They have a need and they go throughout the RFP process if they're really strict on what they're doing, and it's too late. They needed the tool yesterday, so they want to go live
Right.
quickly. So or they want to make sure they meet all the requirements prior to go live. So they're in kind of two buckets. I would say most of the time they're in the bucket of how do we go live quickly, which sets the implementation team up for a little bit of a letdown for the customer where you're already behind the sticks before you start, which is a problem. So it's important prior to kickoff, end of sell cycle, beginning of implementation process to identify that clearly and help them understand what can we do as an implementation team, as a customer team, to get them live simple and iterate from there. And many times that can be a quick win alone. The sales team told you this is going to take 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. We believe we can get you there in a fraction of the time, and we're going to do this integration post go live. The product's still going to work for you. You can get internal adoption after going live. Here's what we can do for you. We do that many times internally is identify what are their key pain points, how can we get you live quickly, iterate from there is almost always the best result for us. But that's a good way to kind of identify first value pointers. What's a good win for them internally, especially for their leadership team, where most of the time once we've purchased a tool we're already behind. We identify the need for this after the need needed to be in place.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a terrific point. Excellent. So that's great. And so one of the things that we also want to talk about is simplifying collaboration, meeting customers where they are. So in our tool, we've got this project plan that we outline, and a lot of our customers, the key stakeholders that are engaging with us, will engage in that project plan with us on our product. Um, and they will engage with our customers on their projects. Their customers will, but of course some stakeholders aren't going to want to do that. You'll need email updates like we were talking about before, status updates, the ability to do so in chat as well. And then one of the things that we've provided in our product just recently is a new customer portal where that can be embedded in our customers products. And so their customers engage in their product, obviously, and want to engage in their product. And rather than also engaging in another tool, ours, they can engage with them directly in their product. And so there's no learning curve. It has the right level of flexibility. You can show the status or provide or ask for input or whatever you want to provide, training materials, etc., within our customer's product using this customer portal experience, and meet them where they are and where they should be. Okay. All right. Let's talk about fueling adoption, engaging, planning, and inspiring, driving that adoption. So one of the things that's important as you're trying to drive adoption is obviously getting customers, the end users excited about using your product, and making sure that they're going to plan on using it. And so one of the things that some of our customers have done is making it an event, making the rollout an event. This happened to be uh, one of our customers. They were having a kickoff for their company, and as part of that kickoff, they brought the people in a room who are going to be using our product together to talk about it and to engage around it and to get some excitement around it. They had giveaways. They had a very fun project name, which I'll talk about in a moment when we have that slide, I guess. And they got the excitement. And this was before going live, but the rollout so they could start, because these people were going to be doing training and user acceptance testing, get them excited about it, get them enthusiastic about it. Anything you want to add there, Kasey?
Yeah, we have the same experience, but we've had this several times, I would say, Brett. It's not every single time. And it's a pretty
Right,
awesome
correct.
experience when your customer is so excited about the rollout and there's so much buy-in that they will actually bring your team out for this experience. But Brett, I would ask you a question. Would you say that this happens kind of organically and naturally, or does your team push for this to happen?
Great point. It has happened organically and
Yeah.
naturally more so than us pushing for it to happen, but something that we want to incorporate and drive more and encourage more. It's a great point.
And I think I would answer the same way, but I guess
Right.
even with that answer, Brett, I guess it's something we kind of subliminally push for by the experience we create, I guess. If
Yeah.
the implementation experience was horrible, there's no way they're
They're
inviting
doing
us
this.
on site. So
That's
if we can
that's
create a good enough experience, everyone's so excited that I think this takes place, whether virtually or in
yeah.
person, but some sort of experience takes place like this. I mean, we have a customer in Europe, and we just had several of our team members out for an on-site like this, exactly
Right.
this. And that was
Right.
uh, a very expensive kind of investment from their team out of excitement,
Right.
just like this experience to get our team out
Right.
there for something like this, all because of that
Right.
same type of experience.
Yeah, and we've had customers do other things like, during go live, I mentioned this was before go live, but during go live, decorating their office, making
Yep.
sure that digital signage happens, talking about, us going live. Some of the decorations include like rocket ships because of our name, obviously, and things like that. And so those sort of things are very fun. And
We send
then,
swag as well. That's something we do pretty
yep,
frequently. Yeah.
yep. And this is the slide where, that this one customer talked about, they named their Project Elton. You can see like a visual of Elton John kind of there. Project Elton because he's the Rocket Man and they were implementing Rocket Lane. So that was fun. But another customer, one of the ones that I was talking about earlier that wanted to focus on adoption first, they're gamifying and incentivizing their teams because of that focus on adoption, and they have challenges as their users are getting started, and you can do that with teams as they're doing, or you can do it with individuals depending on the size of the customer. But who's using the product best, who's using it most, who's engaged, getting the most value out of it, things like that, where you give away prizes, you do it over a period of time, get that ramp up going and move forward in good ways. Other thoughts there?
Nope.
All right. I'm going to talk about painting the future. One of the things that you want to do as you're coming to a close with customers is, in terms of the implementation, is that you're not coming to a close with them in general. And so, you're going to be continuing to work with them. And one of the when you sign a deal for sales, there's an event. The deal is signed. Boom. There's an event. With go lives, there's an event, but often there are lingering things to continue to work on, and the like. And so customers want to make sure that you want to make sure you have celebrations with them, but you also want to make sure that they know what's going to happen next. And so for us, that includes hypercare, this hypercare experience where the person who's been working with them will continue to make sure that they're good and engaged. And then we have the concept of CSM engagement, and we outline what that's going to look like and what that should look like, moving forward. And basically, you're going to be continuing to work with customers on their objectives and how they're going to achieve their objectives. And now it's like, okay, how can we share with you best practices, engage with that, benchmark you against other customers, et cetera, to help paint that picture of how things move forward. Thoughts there?
I think for us there, Brett, ideally, at least with our product that has additional modules that, as we spoke about earlier, many times, like I mentioned, our customers have purchased the product too late in the game for them, and we're looking to go live quickly. Ideally, during hypercare, or I guess ideally post hypercare, kind of in that CSM engagement diamond that we can see up on the screen or square. Um, and I say ideally during the CSM engagement is I prefer to get them stabilized prior to upselling. I wouldn't say that's written in stone, but it's a little bit more ideal. Is we would draw a dotted line back to that implementation stage as often as possible, which signifies additional revenue. And we hope that when that happens, there's a sigh of relief that that implementation process was smooth sailing, and there's not panicking and fear around reopening that process and reintroducing that implementation manager, which is something we do when we re-kick off projects. We don't uh, keep that CSM manager involved in those new implementation projects. So hopefully that
Right.
experience is so great that they're excited to uh, add additional revenue and kick off additional implementation projects.
Right. That's right. And you should have that thought process around what that is. You had mentioned land and expand earlier as well. And if you land and hope to expand, then that's not really a great plan. But if you land and have a consistent plan with, here's what we know customers want 6 months later, or here's what we know they're going to need once after the implementation, and you have that plan that you're working toward, that's great. And to part of your point there also, while most often that's going to happen once the implementation is solidified, et cetera, it's you can't ignore the fact that it will happen sometimes during implementation, and there are opportunities during implementation that you need to be
It
ready
may
for.
already be in the contract as well. I mean,
Right,
you may have
right,
realized during implementation, these 4 lines in the contract, we're actually going to wait until the CSM engagement stage to implement those pieces. So it may
yeah,
just be a matter of time. So let's really make
yeah.
that implementation stage smooth so we're not pulling things out of a contract because they've decided it's not worth their
That
time to implement. That's the
that's
work,
exactly right.
actually
That's
retracting some,
exactly
because although it's a contractual agreement that they're going to pay for that, when push comes to shove, you're not going to lose your customer over pulling that back out of the contract. So it'll come back
right,
out.
right. Exactly, exactly. Great points, and I love the fact that you brought up, like, it the whole thing has to move forward. It's not the end of the journey when you've gotten the customer implemented, even though we're talking about that portion of the journey. You need the plan for the whole time. All right, so this I had mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about flagging issues, fixing faster. So one of the things that we do is we provide a CSAT survey, a quick, easy, you see it right here, not just about the end of what happened at the end, but for any milestone. So how did the kickoff meeting go? Where are you at? And actually, our CEO gets these CSATs, and if they've gone south, then he'll follow up on them. And we follow up on them as we go. We track, et cetera. And there are multiple things that happen with this. One is that by getting the quick response, we can know if we're going off course, like I've been talking about. But another is normally you're getting it right out of the gate, at least at the start, and the customer um, will provide positive feedback, and then they'll realize, okay, I'm providing positive feedback for this vendor, for this partner, and engaging with them. And so later on, if something bad happens or you may have a misstep or what have you, they'll remember that you've been doing well up to that point, and they'll cut you some slack, knowing that we're all human. Whereas if you're only giving them the survey at the end, they will only remember the difficulties that have happened, and the like as well, and they'll forget all the good part from before. And I'm going to talk about flagging deviations, and then Kasey, you can chime in. Flagging deviations, what this is about is flagging risk, right? And so in our tool, as an example, you can, if something's gone longer than it should have, um, some task is taking too long, we're behind the scenes, behind the pace, or what have you, it'll get flagged, or it could get flagged. And when I first joined here, I noticed that a lot of things were getting flagged, but it was too many things. We were flagging too many issues, because it was like this one minor task is a little late, and that's important for the project manager to know, and maybe that person's manager, and to be able to drive that, but not important for us or even the customer as a whole. To know the customer's decision makers, stakeholders, those involved will know. So we changed it to focus. We have this concept of key events and intervals, and we focused on the key events, and which for us are things like integrations, migrations, user acceptance testing, user training, and of course go live. And we focus on those key events. And if one of those is behind schedule, then that gets flagged, and then that's about the right amount of things for us to then weigh in on and to be able to drive those forward. Any comments on this, Kasey?
No, I quickly love anonymous CSATs, kind of like what we're doing, anonymous or non-anonymous, where we're submitting them through the tool. One thing I would push on is don't shy away from non-anonymous, kind of in-person customer satisfaction questions. Something we do at Graphite is during our implementation calls, weekly or monthly, depending on the cadence, we will ask live. The implementation manager, in kind of a candid way, will ask. We do a happiness score where we ask on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with your Graphite implementation experience? And we really want our stakeholders to answer face to face on a scale of 1 to 10. If they answer a 7, what can we do to get that to a 10? And we record that.
Right.
We try to get them to be candid with us. It's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, and some people won't tell you the truth, but we try to create an experience where they will, which is interesting to then see how they score us in Rocket Lane afterwards. It's interesting to see the difference.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and those candid moments are really important. That's a great thing to bring up. And it's similar to when you're mid-contract asking somebody if they're planning on renewing.
Yep.
You can feel uncomfortable about it, but it's hugely important to do. Asking them midstream how it's going is very important as well. That's terrific. All right, here's the bonus item. Then we're going to get to questions. There've been a few questions posted. The bonus item is, we were talking about earlier a couple of things. One is templatizing and saying, okay, for our smaller customers, we're going to have 3 meetings and we're going to focus on those things that are really key and really important. We also talked briefly about charging for onboarding, which is very important. And often companies will say, well, I can't charge for onboarding because this, that, or the other. But you really need skin in the game from your customers for them to know and benefit from the value that you're providing for them. And so we've combined those two with us. And actually, it came from that small customer that I was talking about in the real estate space before when I gave them this consultation, and they found it very, very helpful for them. What we do is with our smallest customers, who might only be spending a few $1,000s with us, we say, hey, we're going to charge you $500 for the onboarding. With our bigger customers, we charge for the implementation, and that's money that is well spent for them because we provide a lot of service for them, and we like to keep our margins flat so that we can do that. But with our smaller customers, if we're charging $3,000, they don't want to spend $500. But what we say is, if you show up having prepared in the way that we've told you to prepare, having done the things that we've told you to do into our meetings, then we will give you your $500 back. And we have seen significant success with that with our customers, and so that they are showing up instead of our implementation managers having our onboarding managers having to track them down and hunt them down, because if you're at a small company, we're wearing 7 hats and you get off to your next thing, and then and also instead of the customer, when they do show up for a meeting, looking at a part of the product and going, oh, that's interesting, tell me about that, and getting the onboarding managers all sidetracked. They come, they're prepared, they've done what they were supposed to have done, and they're ready. And within a few meetings, they've accomplished what they needed to do to get going. Something that seems to resonate with people. Okay, we have a bunch of questions that we'll try and get through relatively quickly here. All right, Varun, are you going to post these on the screen so everybody can see them?
I think he said to read them, Brett, and he will project them on the screen.
Okay, so let's read the first one. Do you determine what that first value might be, for potential onboarding milestones? So yes, what we do is, so we have things on our side. We have things that we know customers are going to want typically. And so we will suggest, things, but we also will ask our customers what it is that they really want. Like, why did they buy us? What is the objective the business objective of why they bought us? Often people will talk about the objective with your product, like using it, et cetera. And then you go, okay, but that's great, but why do you want them to use it? What, et cetera. And so we get to things that normally are like, we want to drive time to value down. We want to do that so that we can improve profitability, or we can improve revenue, or we can improve throughput without having to hire new people, things that are all tied together. Other things on that or not?
I think that's great.
Okay. How do you prioritize which touch points to focus on when onboarding client journey, especially during onboarding? Thoughts there, Kasey?
Yeah, well, I think that goes back a little bit towards what you were speaking about first. I think the essential part here is understanding what matters most to the customer. That's how we build our client journeys is based off of what matters the most, while also focusing on kind of what's going to get us to the end result quickest and smoothest. So that's what matters to us most, at least with our process.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. And so, yeah, similar to what I was saying before, focus on the ones that you know will get them where they need to get
Yep.
to as quickly as possible. Any tips on how to consult with customers to identify what value pointers they have? Um, yeah, that's the where you can ask, not in a rude way, but you can ask the question why multiple times. So, uh, like I was mentioning, as you're first asking those questions, what value you're trying to get out of it, what's the objective you're trying to get out of it, etc. They might tend to focus on things with the tool. But if you ask, okay, but what do you want to get out of that? Why do you want people to do it? And you probe multiple times around that, or even then, if they're not getting there, give them suggestions of here's what other people are getting out of the product, and the like. Then you can go from there.
Yeah, what will actually make a difference?
Yeah, exactly. Right. What will actually make a difference? Or you could also ask the question, 6 months from now, 1 year from now, when you go report to your leaders, what are they going to be expecting from you? What results are going to make it so that they're going to be happy, you'll get promoted, or you'll get the kudos, or whatever it is that you'll be able to get. You could also ask the question, what is it that we need to do in order for you to be with us for long term? Any of those kinds of questions can help out. What strategies do you recommend for managing client dissatisfaction during critical points in the client journey?
I can take that one,
Um,
Brett, if you'd like.
yeah, thanks, Jason. Yeah, it's perfect.
I think many times, especially from a support services side of the business, we hear a lot of dissatisfaction, especially through things like support tickets, let's say. Same thing on the customer success implementation side, but it's easy to immediately think we did something wrong. And I'm not saying we didn't, many times we do, but it's important to understand what actually took place. And I think you need to take uh, customer and client dissatisfaction head on, meet with the person expressing this concern and try to deep dive into what actually took place. I can't tell you how many times, even recently, we hear product dissatisfaction or dissatisfaction with one of our team members. And once you actually deep dive into the situation, yes, it's probably a mix of the customer and the tool and our internal team member. But many times, once you meet with maybe someone in a leadership position, you realize oftentimes it's organization within the customer department, or there's something underlying taking place. There's a technical problem. Don't just simply uh, overlook what's going on and just think, oh, it's just this problem, or uh, it's what we always hear. But really deep dive into what's going on so you can figure out what's happening. But also take it head on. Try to solve the problem quickly. Don't be fearful of having the hard conversation with the person complaining. It feels like once you do, you realize that these things aren't nearly as bad. But once you just push it to the back of your inbox, these things get pretty ugly pretty quick. People are very reasonable when you simply jump on a call, turn your camera on, and talk to them about what's going wrong. And many times you find out that it's not actually your fault if you'll just talk to the person about it and explain what's happened.
That's great. And that's where focusing on the objectives and how you're getting to those objectives, even if all of the details aren't exactly as the customer
Sure.
would want, is really helpful as well. But that's a great answer. We're coming to a close here. We have a couple more questions. We'll talk about them for those who want to stay on. Obviously, you can still scan the QR code if you want to talk with us more. But we've got 3 more questions that we'll address quickly, if that's all right, Kasey. What are some practical ways to measure and improve client satisfaction across all touch points in the client journey? Um, so we talked about the customer satisfaction that we ask at milestones during implementation. People will ask CSAT also when they have support tickets and like. People ask NPS questions on a periodic basis every 6 months or the like, to be able to move forward from, and help with that. And then you just got to look through and look through the details. You want to make sure you ask the follow-up questions, the open-ended questions, so that you can get more details around those areas. And you want to couple those with the outcomes that you're striving for and the objectives that you're striving for. and whether people are hitting those or not. Kasey, I'll just let you chime in. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going since we're at time now.
Yep.
The last two questions. One is hypercare. What does this look like? Is the CSM involved, or do you wait until the end of the hypercare? How does hypercare look different from the implementation? So from our point of view, what it looks like is the implementation manager who has been engaged with the customer from the start will stay engaged with the customer while they're starting to use the product, while they are engaging with the product. So it's not just here you go, we've gone live and move on. Now, because when they start using the product, there'll be an issue. They'll find a bug. They'll find that, oh, my process has changed. I didn't want it to change that much, or the customer wanted it to change that way, but the users aren't able to handle the difference in the change. And so the implementation manager will engage with them. But we do include the CSM as soon as the customer goes live, so that we can start focusing on that project as well. And we'll move to the more business side of things with the CSM, and the more implementation side of things. We will keep the implementation manager focused on that. And the last question is how to draw actionable insights from the data as a CSM. And that's a pretty broad question. I would encourage that person to reach out to me, and we can talk through that in more detail, exactly what they're looking for there, because there could be all sorts of data, and there's a lot of data that is behind the times. So for example, if usage has dropped, then something has happened. So but I'd love to talk about that question more in depth. So whoever wants to talk with me about that question can engage with me later. As you just saw flash up, we've got another upcoming webinar, so look for that. This has been fantastic. It's on October 23rd, and you can register now, as Varun is saying. If there's anything else, feel free to reach out to us. If you reach out to me on LinkedIn, mention that you were in this webinar, and then I will connect with you, and that'll be fantastic. Or you can send me an email to either brett@rocketlane.com or jbrett@rocketlane.com. Looking forward to any conversations. Kasey, this has been fantastic. Anything you want to wrap up with? Thank you very much for your participation and engagement.
Nope, nothing else. This was awesome. Thanks to everyone who joined.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kasey. Thank you, everybody.